Morning, everyone. My name is Juanita Clark. I'm from an industry association called the Digital Council Africa. So we were established in South Africa about 12 years ago, really at the beginning of the onset of fiber deployments at that stage. And the bulk of our work at those times focused on the deployment of fiber optic infrastructure and finding mechanisms to connect people. But before I do that, let me also welcome some of our dignitaries from South Sudan, the Deputy Secretary, nice and welcome. Anybody else that I'm missing? The government of Tanzania, thank you for an invitation to your beautiful country. It's always a pleasure to come to Dar. Who doesn't love it here? Best seafood in the world. And if you've got time to go to Zanzibar, which unfortunately I don't, to this trip. Yeah, one of the most beautiful islands ever. And of course the people are the best part of Tanzania and Zanzibar. Colleagues, it's a big pleasure this morning to host this panel and to introduce my fellow speakers. I'm going to give each one of them a moment to introduce themselves, and then we're going to jump into a little bit of dialogue and questions, but please feel free to ask. I can ask some of the questions. I know many of the answers to the questions that I ask. This session is here to serve you, so please feel free to jump in and ask some questions. But I want to pick up from where my colleague from Meta was talking. And the metaverse is phenomenal, and it's going to bring tremendous opportunities for Africans. And sometimes we think that this is like really far in the future, but it's not. These things are right here. It's happening everywhere else in the world. We heard from the lady from, I think it's Johnson & Johnson, speaking about how this is already being applied. But if we're going to capitalize on these types of technologies, we need to get the connectivity in place. That's the beginning and that's the end of all of it. It's a bit like building a house. You can't hang curtains on a wall that doesn't exist. You can't put a roof up on a place that doesn't exist. There's no point in putting beautiful furniture inside a house that doesn't have a roof. What we need to do as a continent, we have to ensure that we get the connectivity in place first. And I'm not sure if there's one connectivity that stands out above everything else. I don't know, maybe it's satellite, maybe it's fiber. But I'm going to leave that up to our colleagues here this morning to discuss, to talk about and debate a little bit about high throughput networks. How do we achieve this connectivity that can help Africans participate in the global digital economy that we know is set to be a game changer for Africa? So I'm going to start on that side. Alvin, with you, if you'll do a quick introduction, and then we're just going to go down the line and everybody's going to have a moment to introduce themselves.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Alvin Thomas, Senior Sales Director for Africa for Intelsat, based in Nairobi. Very happy to be here. And of course, thanks to Extensia for hosting us in Tanzania.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Alex Nkuyahaga. I'm the CTO at Smile Communications. Happy to be here, and thanks to Extensia and the panel that we have here. I hope we're going to have a fruitful engagement.
My name is Naoll Merdassa. Thanks for Extensia for hosting us and beautiful country, Tanzania. I am born and raised in Ethiopia, but currently I live in US. I am a vice president and solution architect for merchant services in Bank of America, where we provide merchant services, including devices, terminal, POS, end-to-end solution. And I'm happy to be here. I am one of the consumers of the connectivity because our solution depends on connectivity services.
Hi. G'day, I'm Hannes Hattingh. I'm from SC Engineering iDirect, subsidiary of Singapore Technologies. I'm based in South Africa, sales director for Southern and East Africa, supporting the region. And basically our company designs, develops and manufactures ground segment for satellite communications. So, and for everybody, I thank you for being here, having us. It's always lovely to come to this country. Like I said, also would have liked to go to some of the islands, not this time, next time. But thank you very much for having us in Extension.
Thanks, colleagues. Thanks for that introduction. Alvin, I'm going to start with you. And I want to just talk a little bit about data consumption, because that's obviously the driver behind most things. We know that companies say, build it and they'll come. You know, those are some of the theories that are put out there. But I just want to also talk about the last 2 years. So, you know, everybody talks about the fourth industrial revolution, and I think that what COVID's done is it's taken everybody that was still talking about whether there is a fourth industrial revolution and it's put everybody inside it. From a connectivity provider point of view, what has been the growth in data consumption, if anything, over the last so many years? And then especially just a quick focus on the pandemic, and have you seen changes in that?
Thank you very much. That's a very, very good question. For the past decade, I mean, data has really been growing. And not to forget, for the past 2 years alone, data has actually grown by 90%. This is according to Forbes. So today we're talking about over 100 zettabytes of data being generated. So it's really, really fantastic to know how there's been a paradigm shift. And as you rightly said, I mean, due to the pandemic, we've had a dramatic change. I mean, we need to ask ourselves, what has really, really, really driven the change? So there are two key factors: smartphone adoption and also video, all right? And also, how about the change through the demographics? We have digitalization to a large extent, and at the same time, convergence. And across demographics, if we look at the age bracket below 25, these are very agile demographics. And also, if you look at the older folks as well, today our parents are on Facebook, they're on social media, they consume a lot of data. So back to the question, over the past 2 years alone, we've had 90% increase in data. All right, so today we are saying for the past decade, we can talk about almost threefold increase and more to come. Thank you.
Sure, that's really interesting statistics. But I also want to just look at Alex. I'm gonna ask you. Just ISOC spoke about the rural connectivity and things. Do we think that there's really a need for high-speed networks, especially in more rural communities, or do you think that we should be able to cope with what we've got, or are we under pressure to make those financial investments?
Thank you, Juanita. I'll start by saying, obviously, as my colleague has mentioned, there has been a spike in over the last couple of years, primarily because of the pandemic. It affected user behavior generally. There's been a bigger uptake of internet usage in the homes, which wasn't really the case in the past. So coming to your question about the need, whether the need is there, I believe the need is there in Africa. Africa possesses one of the, if not the youngest population globally. This is a young generation that is tech savvy, and they really need the internet for their way of life. Another indicator is the massive investment by the fiber providers, the undersea fiber providers. There's a lot of investment coming into the African continent. I would like to believe these investors have taken their time to crunch the numbers and really see that there's going to be demand. And indeed, all indication is that the demand for high throughputs and in effect, the high capacity to accommodate these throughputs is indeed an indication of the growth. And yes, so to answer your question, I believe that yes, there is a need. It might not be immediate, but it is definitely there. I think the onus is on us as the stakeholders on the African continent to create usage on the internet. Look, we need to become innovative with solutions that solve the common African challenges. For instance, farming. How do we get the farmers making use of the internet? Education, as the Internet Society just presented previously, they have an initiative of free education. These kinds of initiatives. Africa is known for some initiatives that have taken over the world, like say mobile money. It is tailored for African needs. So I think the onus is on us as players and stakeholders within the industry and also Africa at large to strive towards creating an environment and facilitating innovations that result in more and more usage and uptake of the internet, and as such, driving up, making use of the, driving up the demand for high throughputs. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Which I suppose sort of leads one to speak a little bit to, innovation, OTT applications. Naoll, I mean, how has access to connectivity helped with accelerated the development of OTT services? And, coming from a bank's point of view, I'm always surprised. I mean, if we look around the room, and it doesn't matter, I mean, we go to a lot of conferences in Africa, but, I mean, there's few of us here that's steering an entire sector. It doesn't matter where we go. The conferences are small, and the burden sits on 300 people that sort of drive the strategy, that make the decisions. From an OTT point of view, how has connectivity, helped drive the strategy from your point of view?
Thanks, Juanita, for that question. But I'll start by saying, gentleman next to me, partially he's in my head, right? Some of the points he was raising are on point. With that said, I'll come back to that later. In terms of OTT or over-the-top, transmissions, as a result of the advancement in the engineering and technology, communication is no more analog or 2D per se, right? It evolved to include 3D, videos. As far as in our industry, we highly use videos for trainings, training our customer service staff, support staff, as well as including VR for training our staff that reduce the cost and the time, right? The time to market did reduce as a result of that advancement. When it comes to Africa, right, the adoption, if you will, of OTT is an area where it's just picking up, right? From content delivery entertainment. We're starting to using that. In the past, last year, 2021, it was $650-something million a year in the entire continent, right? That's really small in terms of investment, if you will, in terms of economic activity. It is projected to be $2 billion by 2024, right? Still, that's not a lot, right? That shows there is room for investment and in the content creation and using the infrastructure. With that said, however, as the gentleman was saying, Africa has a unique challenge that it is different, if you will, from the rest of the world, right? From the advanced economies. Therefore, the technology adoption or the solutions should be geared towards solving the existing problems we have rather than trying to replicate what is currently being used in advanced technologies, right? There needs to be some sort of adaptation using the technology to solve our current problems. In agriculture, education, health, there are areas that are unique for Africa that we could use the investment as well as the technology to solve our current challenge.
Thanks so much, Hannes. And then for you, your background is satellite. That's really where you're a specialist in. A critical component in this ecosystem of connectivity. But like, a lot of people will just talk about fiber backhaul, et cetera, but there's been a tremendous change in satellite connectivity. I mean, it's grown in leaps and bounds. What are some of these advances, that we've seen that's increased network capacity, maybe from a SAT point of view?
Yeah, thanks for that. So I think I'm going to answer it in this way. So yesterday I looked at, we had the shared infrastructure panel, and they said satellite is not keeping up with the throughputs or demands. I think it is, and depending on how it is utilized. So obviously with satellite communication, we've got distance, we've got some physical constraints. So, and we've got high costs. What we need to do is improve efficiency all the time. So innovation in efficiency is a major investment in that factor. Also then technology and processing power, as far as the ground segment goes, where I come in. But for that to work, and then obviously to increase throughputs by reducing firstly operational costs, but also equipment costs. So innovation comes in all the time. And we can't do that without the satellite providers doing the same thing on their satellites. It's ecosystem that needs to be balanced. So when they improve their satellites, we can improve our ground system. So from ST engineering side, latest developments is like MXTDMA, MRC. It's an access on the access side technology, which basically combines the efficiency of the SCPC, point-to-point type of link, but also the versatility and scalability with TDMA, point-to-multipoint. So, we're closing that gap, but we need the satellites to be able to do that. And, from a high throughput, going away from the access, looking at transmission side, we brought out new technology, MDM 5010, I don't think quoting this, but where we're looking up to 1.6, 1.9 gigabits of data transfer over satellite, which is, getting pretty high. So, we keep on innovating, right? We just talked about OTT. We've got the new Skyflow system that is one of the first multi-vendor or more, how can I say, open access type of OTT systems. So we keep on driving that innovation. And like I said, those three components with satellite is efficiency, having the power to get to those high throughputs, but then obviously bringing the operational and the equipment cost down. and 90% of our innovation goes into that. Also, next generation satellites coming up by, low Earth orbit, medium, Earth orbit satellites, allows us even to increase that. So it's just keep on and going. And I think it's, a lot of people say satellites diminishing in the wider, pool of things, a lot of fiber coming in, but we still need it, and it's actually growing substantially.
No.
Thank you.
I can believe that. I'm going to have to send that thing all the way back again to Alvin is up. Have you got one? So, I mean, following on from what Hannes was saying, we've seen, I mean, it's in the news everywhere and everybody's reading about this, that Intelsat has sort of taken a step into the GSM world, and they're building a unified global 5G network. Does this come as an answer to the need for a high throughput network? Will you give us a little bit of background on Intelsat's thinking behind this, and really just what's included in this?
Okay, thank you very much for the question, Juanita. As a global organization, we believe in creating a very conducive ecosystem that resonates with the growing needs to transform lives through connectivity. So what we have done is we want to create a seamless kind of transition. So whether you're in an aircraft, whether you're on terrestrial, and whether you're in space or maritime, you're able to access connectivity, which is a huge change. We are actually the pioneer in the industry, and we've taken a heavy burden of investing over $2 billion in this investment. And we also have partners in this going forward. I mean, Hannes has rightly said we work a lot with ST Engineering. And also at the same time, we have other partners within our services portfolio that we actually work with to make this a reality. So what are we saying? We're saying we're going to have a 5G-enabled unified network. And this is going to be a multi-orbit, all right, and a multi-layered. So we're also thinking about not only the economics of the solution, but also reach. And also at the same time, it's going to be software defined. According to the ITU standards, this fits very well. And also it's going to be an open source system, which makes us very, very competitive as an institution, and also resonates with the needs of the industry. And also at the same time, we look at what terminals we can work with our partners. So it's going to be smart edge terminals. And at the same time, these are things that are going to go seamlessly with also in-flight connectivity in aircrafts. Our commitment to some of this is we recently acquired Gogo, which is the #1 in terms of in-flight connectivity, and now they're 100% Intelsat. So we are committed to have a frictionless user experience, and also at the same time give back to society globally. And as an organization, we're really committed to this cause. So we sensitize a lot from a regulatory perspective. So in Tanzania, for example, I mean, we're in touch with TCRA, of course in Addis with ECA, and of course in Kenya, CA, and other institutions. We work a lot with MNOs, all right? As I said yesterday, we serve 7 of the top 10 MNOs globally. So we handshake, and also from a stakeholder management perspective, we reach out, we consult, and we cannot build this ecosystem alone, all right? We also resonate with service providers, with various segments within very many different shifts, for example, oil and gas, road construction, railways, and this kind of stuff. So what we are saying is, as market leaders, we are ready to take the risk, we're ready to jumpstart connectivity, and we cover 99% of the world populated area. So this gives us an edge in terms of changing the game again, and also at the same time provide technological leadership. Thank you.